Hello, Bucharest. We are Metallica, were the first words James Hetfield said on stage a few weeks ago when I attended their concert, and everyone lost their mind, including me. What's interesting isn't that he sounded confident, it's that nobody questioned that confidence. Because after 45 years of filling stadiums, they've earned it. Now, compare that to the internet. Today, someone can learn a topic Thursdays ago, buy a microphone, post aggressively for 6 months, and sound just as certain as someone with 20 years of experience. I mean, scratch that. They sound even more confident. And that's a problem. Because one of the biggest shifts of the past decade is that expertise didn't become less valuable, but it did become harder to recognize. If you're an expert, a consultant, a coach, a strategist, or a creator, you've probably felt this. You can explain complexity carefully. Someone else screams, just do this one thing into a ring light and gets 4.7 million views, plus a sponsorship from a mushroom coffee company that was founded like 6 minutes ago. Doesn't it feel like a deeply unserious timeline? Meanwhile, if you're wondering whether you're losing your mind, you're not alone. But also, no, you're not losing your mind. The market for expertise got weird. In this video, I want to show you the 5 reasons why real experts struggle online today and, more importantly, what to do about it. Hi, I'm Adriana Tika, a strategy consultant for solopreneurs. I work with coaches, consultants, and experts to help them build a solid, profitable business without selling their souls to social media algorithms. If you're curious about how solopreneurs make their money, how much they make, and what channels they spend time on, download the State of Solopreneurship Dildo. It's the first unbiased report that will tell you what social media success stories won't, how solo business realistically grows. Now let's talk about why experts struggle online and how to fix it. The first reason is that the internet rewards credibility shortcuts. The first thing that changed is not the expertise itself. Expertise is still valuable. In fact, I would argue that expertise is becoming more valuable because the world is becoming more complex, more competitive, and definitely noisier. What changed is the way people recognize expertise. Human beings have always used shortcuts to evaluate credibility. We simply don't have enough time to deeply investigate every person we encounter online. So our brains look for signals that suggest competence. Confidence is one of those signals. So are familiarity, repetition, social proof, visual polish, and fluency. The problem is that these signals are imperfect. Confidence and competence often travel together, but they are not the same thing. Research has shown that people frequently confuse confidence with expertise, especially in uncertain environments. That matters because the internet is one giant uncertain environment. Most people don't know who the best strategist, coach, marketer, consultant, or advisor is. They lack the information required to make that determination. As a result, they fall back on short. The person who sounds more certain often appears more credible than the person who is more knowledgeable. This explains why somebody can spend 20 years mastering a craft while somebody else spends 6 months mastering communication and ends up attracting more attention. The solution is not becoming louder or more performative. The solution is making your expertise easier to recognize. Most experts assume that their experience will speak for itself, but audiences cannot see experience. They can only see how effectively that experience is communicated. So, instead of trying to project more confidence, focus on creating more clarity. The easier it becomes for people to understand your thinking, the easier it becomes for them to recognize your expertise. Reason number 2 why the market for expertise got weird. Real experts communicate differently. The second challenge I keep seeing time and time again is that experienced people tend to communicate in ways that are less compatible with social media. In fact, they often sound less certain because they've seen edge cases, trade offs, unintended consequences, timing variables, and exceptions. That person who's only ever worked on one business their entire career, they don't question anything. One of the questions I get asked most often when I'm a guest on podcasts is, what advice would you give someone who's just starting out? I always do my best to find a blanket answer, but candidly, I fucking hate that question. Just like I don't offer the same playbook in 2 different strategy sessions with my clients because people and contexts are different, it's hard to answer a question about an imaginary beginner. My knee-jerk reflex is to give the most hated answer in the world. It depends. Then ask a series of questions of my own. What industry are they in? How big is their network? Do they have a financial cushion? What are their business skills? And so on. But people don't want that because they mistake simplicity for mastery. That gap between their expectations and what experts actually deliver creates a strange market dynamic. The people with the shallowest understanding often communicate with clean certainty. Just niche down, just raise your prices, just post every day, just build a fucking personal brand. Meanwhile, actual experts tend to say, well, it depends on your category dynamics, the buying cycle, positioning, trust maturity, market sophistication, margins, and business models. Guess which version spreads faster on TikTok? Yeah, the algorithm would like you to dance now. This is where the illusion of explanatory depth meets the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with limited knowledge oversimplify complex matters to death and come up with catchy sound bites but zero applicable meaning. Reason number three, expertise became harder to evaluate. This third shift is about sheer volume. The amount of content being produced today is staggering. Every day we're exposed to thousands of posts, videos, articles, newsletters, podcasts, and increasingly AI generated content. This creates a problem. Repeated exposure starts looking like expertise. Psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. The more often we encounter an idea, the more familiar it becomes. The more familiar it becomes, the more credible it feels. This helps explain why certain creators seem authoritative despite repeating the same handful of ideas for years. Their authority is partly a function of exposure. The challenge becomes even greater in fields where outcomes take a long time to emerge. In strategy, marketing, leadership, consulting, investing, or personal development, it can take months or years before someone discovers whether a piece of advice was actually useful or not. When outcomes are delayed, storytelling often fills the evaluation gap. People naturally gravitate towards explanations that feel coherent and confident, even when they are incomplete. This is why experts should stop competing on volume. Most will never win that game anyway. Instead, you should focus on creating proof that compounds. Build case studies, publish original research, develop frameworks, collect testimonials with specifics, share observations that come from years of experience rather than weeks of experimentation. Compounding proof is much harder to fake than content volume. Reason number four, the expertise economy became a performance economy. The fourth shift is the one that catches most experts off guard because most of them believe that they are competing on knowledge. In reality, they are competing on visibility and signal transmission. That's because knowledge lives inside your head. The market can only evaluate what becomes visible. And that's usually your positioning, your framing, your examples, your language, your ability to teach, your ability to connect ideas together. Many experts hear this and assume that they need to become influencers. But that's not what I'm suggesting. I want to challenge you to think about visibility and expertise not as opposing forces. Visibility is how expertise travels. The people who stand out are often the people who can communicate complex ideas in memorable ways. They help people understand difficult concepts without stripping them of all meaning. This is why intellectual territory matters so much. Many experts sound interchangeable because they rely on generic language and generic advice. Memorability, on the other hand, comes from distinct perspectives, recurring concepts, original frameworks, and language that people can easily associate with you. People remember ideas that have names. They remember concepts that help them organize reality. They remember experts whose thinking feels coherent. Instead of trying to create more content, focus on becoming memorable. Case in point, the video you're watching right now was initially a newsletter edition. I strongly believe in the power of this idea, so I want to give it more platforms, more channels, and I wanted to reach more and more people. I'm not struggling to create more content. I'm offering more visibility to the content and the ideas that I've already produced and that I'm proud of. Finally, reason number five, buyers hire the expert they remember. The final shift is that most buying decisions are made from a very small pool of mentally available options. People rarely evaluate every possible consultant, coach, strategist, or advisor before making a purchase. They choose from the handful of people they already know. This means that they will buy from the expert they remember, the expert they understand, the expert whose ideas have stayed with them over time. This matters because expert-led businesses often operate on delayed trust cycles. Somebody may consume your content for 6 months before becoming a client. They may read your newsletter for a year before they even need your help. The buying trigger often arrives long after the trust building process begins. When that moment comes, people don't suddenly start searching for expertise from scratch. They reach for the names already occupying mental real estate. This is why consistency matters so much. It's not because algorithms demand it, it's because trust compounds through repeated exposure. Every interaction helps people build a more complete picture of your thinking, your judgment, and your expertise. Again, the goal is not becoming famous. The goal is becoming memorable enough that when the right problem appears, your name is one of the first that comes to mind as the solution owner. And that leads to the biggest opportunity hidden inside all of this. The internet is becoming saturated with synthetic confidence. People are growing increasingly skeptical of overperformed certainty and recycled ideas. That creates an opening for experts who can combine genuine expertise with clarity, consistency, good judgment, and intellectual honesty. Those are the people who will become trusted reference points in their respective categories. Yes, it takes longer, but it also compounds harder. I want to leave you with the following thought. Most experts I advise usually come to one of two conclusions. The first one is that expertise doesn't matter anymore. The second one is that the only way to succeed is to become louder, more provocative, more extreme, and more performative. I don't think either of them is correct because what changed isn't the value of expertise. What changed is the recognition system. The internet created an environment where confidence often travels faster than competence, where certainty spreads faster than nuance, and where repeated exposure can look a lot like credibility. And I know that's frustrating when you've spent years building real expertise. It's frustrating when you watch somebody with a fraction of your experience attract more attention and more revenue than you. It's frustrating when your carefully considered answer gets ignored while somebody else's oversimplified hot take goes viral. But there's another way to look at what's happening. The same forces that make it easier for inexperienced people to attract attention also make it easier for audiences to become disappointed. Every time somebody follows bad advice, buys into empty promises, or realizes that a confident creator doesn't actually have much depth behind the performance, trust erodes a little further. People become more skeptical, more selective, more careful. And this is what creates an opportunity for experts who are willing to play a different game. My suggestion to you is that instead of playing the game influencers play, try playing the game of becoming consistently useful, the game of helping people think better, the game of building trust over time rather than chasing reactions in the moment. Because at the end of the day, most serious buyers aren't looking for entertainment. They're looking for good judgment. They're looking for someone who understands complexity without getting lost in it. They're looking for someone who can help them make better decisions. And that skill becomes more valuable year after year. The experts who will win in the next decade probably won't be the people with the strongest personal brands. They'll be the people whose thinking becomes indispensable, the people whose names come up in a room they're not even in, the people whose ideas get repeated long after somebody closes a browser tab. And yes, once again, that takes longer to build, but it also creates a much, much stronger foundation. After all, nobody bought a Metallica ticket just because James Hetfield posted consistently on LinkedIn, right? People showed up because decades of great work created trust, reputation, and cultural significance. The internet makes us forget that sometimes, but reality eventually reminds us. If you liked this video and want more like it, don't forget to subscribe below.